Hello, my name is Alyssa Tudor. I'm in BA 465 International Management. The international current event in business that I wanted to talk about today was how the tariffs are affecting agricultural goods in the United States. I decided on this topic because I did a lot of research on different current events happening, and a lot of them did talk about the tariffs. And I saw some mention of agriculture being affected by the tariffs. So I found some articles talking about the agriculture industry and how it's being affected, and I found it really interesting. So the overview of what's happening within the agriculture industry. In recent years, the U.S. agriculture has been caught in the crossfire of international trade disputes. It mostly started during the U.S. and China trade war that began in 2018. When Trump got reelected as president in 2025, Trump imposed tariffs to many countries at the beginning of his presidency, and then China decided to impose retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. agricultural exports. This mostly affected the soybeans, pork, and corn. Then many other countries have decided to follow suit in China's decisions. The agricultural sector is now facing large decline in exports. They are experiencing volatility within the market, and they now have ruined relationships with many of the foreign buyers that they have been dealing with for many years. These new threats can be very damaging, considering that this industry is already vulnerable to weather, pricing, and global demand. So the business and policy impact, the increase in imports and decrease in exports, but we can see by the graph that starting in about 2022, the increase in imports and decrease in exports started, and they haven't changed over the past 2 years. So there will most likely stay in that trend of increase in imports and decrease in exports. Another impact will be the supply chain disruptions and the rising costs for equipment and fertilizer, and both of those will be affected from the tariffs. The biggest impact will most likely be the increase in imports and decrease in exports, because both of those will just stay on the same trend and possibly get worse throughout the year. The trade policies and political actions that have taken place, Trump put tariffs on China that started at 10% but has now increased to 145% on all Chinese imports. He put a 25% tariff on most imports in Canada and 10% tariff on all energy resources. There was a 25% tariff put on all goods coming from Mexico, and a 25% tariff on imported cars, auto parts, steel, and aluminum coming from the European Union. And the retaliatory tariffs that have taken place, China now has a 125% tariff on all U.S. goods now. Canada put a 25% tariff on many exports that is worth about $30 billion, and they are planning to extend that worth to about $50 billion. Mexico is planning on imposing tariffs that will range between 5% to 20% on certain products. And the European Union imposed retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. that was about $28 billion worth of goods. So the risks that they will most likely experience, U.S. products are now more expensive for other countries to purchase, so the agriculture industry will most likely experience loss of export markets. They will have reduced demand, which will lead to the domestic oversupply, and which will then lead them to have to drop their prices on their crops. Imported products such as fertilizers or machinery and fuel will now be more expensive to purchase due to tariffs imposed on the other countries. Supply chains will be disrupted since the products are perishable items and will most likely experience delays for important packing materials and transportation. And if foreign buyers are finding alternative suppliers, U.S. farmers will have to try and rebuild and trust and relationships they had prior to the tariffs, so it could lead to long-term damage to the market. And for the adaptations, farmers will now have to move to new export markets. They will probably see government support and subsidies, like changes made to the market facilitation program, and they will most likely have tax breaks or emergency funds. Farmers will have to focus more on the domestic sales now, instead of their foreign buyers. And American Farm Bureau Federation will begin lobbying for removal of tariffs or bilateral trade deals. So the company case study I'm going to cover is Cargill. They are a privately owned business. They work in agriculture with buying, processing, and distributing crops. With food production, they make variable ingredients for different food manufacturers. They distribute meat and protein, but mostly just beef and poultry. They work in over 70 countries, and they have about 160,000 employees. So the company has already been facing financial strain over recent years, and with the tariffs, they will likely have a decline in their revenue, even more than they've already been facing. They noticed the challenges that they had coming, and they actually announced layoffs that affected about 8,000 of their employees. The CEO has stated that navigating the trade disruptions is a top priority for them, and that they are working to realign their strategies of talent and resources to have a better position in the industry to try to figure out how they're going to navigate the trade disruptions. For strategic recommendations, firms need to think about diversifying their export markets. Many farmers are losing their relationships that they had with other countries that they worked with for a long time, and they need to think about other countries that they can try to work with and build a relationship with. Investing in domestic processing would be a good move also. I feel like it would be hard to make any relationship with any country right now due to the tariffs. Leverage trade agreements. This would happen mostly with the United States, Mexico, Canada agreement. Hedge currency and trade risks. They can use different financial strategies to help lower the risks with currency exchange rates or tariffs, and expand lobbying efforts for better trade policies. For the future outlook of this industry, there is still a lot of uncertainty as of now with any industry, so especially for the agriculture industry that already has uncertainty anyways. Volatility will remain high for some time, and firms should prepare for any risk that they may experience. In these certain circumstances, trying to navigate what to do can be difficult, and firms need to understand the dynamics of the tariffs and how it could affect them. So, in conclusion, for the agriculture industry, the tariffs have significantly disrupted U.S. agriculture and the market. Firms need to be able to adapt to the uncertainty through actions and taking these actions such as diversification, policy engagement, and innovation. Farmers are most likely experiencing lost market access and rising input costs, and government relief is only a short-term fix. Thank you.